Welcome to Campfire Conspiracies, where the fire is warm but the stories send a chill down your spine.
Wait, did you hear that? Welcome to Campfire Conspiracies. I'm Summer.
I'm Samuel, and we're a podcast that talks about all things creepy, cryptic, and conspiracy related.
We talk about the paranormal, the macabre, and the mysterious, and we do it in a way that makes it a competition for the both of us, as well as the listener.
That's right. Each episode of each season, we take turns talking about two different stories of that episode's topic, and we leave it up to you, the listener, to decide who wins each round.
The loser at the end of 6 rounds, so 6 episodes, has to do whatever predetermined punishment we set at the start of the season. Last season, Sam won, so I had to get my hair dyed. A horrible mixture of purple and blue. Let's say it just didn't go well.
This season, the loser will have to get a piercing wherever the winner tells them to. But that's not even the best part. One of us isn't the only one that will win. For every episode you vote on, you automatically get your name added into a prize draw to win a free shirt of your choice, designed by yours truly that is related to one of the topics we've talked about in this season.
The more episodes you listen to, the more times you vote, the more chances you get of having your name pulled out of that hat. And just remember, you're limited to 1 vote per episode, so please make your vote count and vote for me.
Today we're talking about the mysteries of Australia. But before we get into today's stories, let's talk about some news that's been making its way around the campfire.
Have you heard of these zombie cicadas?
No.
I have gotten a bit of a soft spot since the Havana episode about cicadas and the fact that they're now bringing there's this news that there's zombie cicadas, another thing that just appeals to me so much. But yeah, it seems they are consuming this mushroom that destroys sensitive parts of the anatomy and creates a zombie-like state in the brain.
Cool.
Yeah, well, not really for them.
No. Wait, so they're consuming stuff that is killing them?
Yeah, they're consuming the mushrooms or the spores.
And because they're consuming it, it's messing with them,
Uh-huh.
not with... So it's not something that if we ate it, it would mess with us.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You know, the article didn't say. I hope not.
Right. Okay.
Though, no, yeah, I hope not. I don't think they would have mentioned that because 2020 has been such a disaster. I think we need to be on the lookout of things that will make us zombies.
I mean, there's zombie deer already. Have you heard of that?
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah. I wonder if it's for the same reason.
No.
I didn't. It's not? I didn't look into it, so.
No.
Cool.
You got any news? That's my fun news of the week.
No, I got new Lego.
So Sam's had his birthday. He got a lot of Lego.
That's right. Yeah, I turned 25 on the weekend, and it was a pretty good night. A lot of laughs. Had a campfire,
Yes,
which was cool,
of course.
and a lot of alcohol was consumed.
I've heard
So.
definitely a lot.
But yeah, that's it for news.
Yeah.
So,
In which case, let's get onto the story.
Cool.
You're first.
Yep. Summer went first last week, so I'm going first this week. As said in the intro, we're talking today about Mysterious Australia, or things in Australia that are mysteries to us. I've chosen the topic of the mysterious disappearance of Frederick Valentich.
And I love this.
Yeah.
If you follow us on Instagram, you'll see that I tried to do Fun Fact Fridays. It's a big part of why I love doing social media. And this was one of my fun facts because I am thrilled by this case.
Yeah. Some of the fun facts that we do will be snippets from topics that we'll end up covering later on in later episodes.
Definitely.
Which, again, this is probably, I think, the first fun fact that we will have covered in an episode. So this
not
is
the first quote, but yeah, the first fun fact. Yeah.
So this is the match that lights the torch.
Yes, you poetic fool.
Yep. So I hope I do it justice. Right from the get-go, Frederick Valentich is a mystery. From the resources I have at my disposal, the only thing about his early life that I could find is that he was born in 1958. His job was a pilot for Southern Air Services in Moorabbin, where he utilized his private flying license to pick up orders of crayfish and other objects. This bit of information about his life, though, isn't concrete. Like, there's
Okay.
been different variations of what his actual job was. Like, some people say that he worked at like a retail store.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not actually sure if this is canon with the rest of his life. I
Canon.
don't know.
All
I
right.
don't know if this is fact or fiction to just make the disappearance
Mm-hmm.
more intriguing, you know? Though he had his private aircraft license, he had dreams of becoming a commercial pilot. In the 2 years he'd been flying, he had accumulated over 150 hours of solo flight time. In 1978, at the age of 20, Frederick was living in Melbourne with his parents, working as a shop assistant at an army disposal store. See, so this is where it gets a little weird, because some reports say he was working for Southern Air Services, others were saying the army disposal store.
Okay.
So I put both in there because I wasn't sure. He was also a member of the Air Training Corps. He had always dreamed of having a career in aviation. He'd applied for the Royal Australian Air Force on 2 occasions, but was rejected both times due to not meeting the educational criteria. He'd also failed his commercial license exams twice, and been in trouble for flying into clouds when he shouldn't have. Still, he had a Class 4 license, which allowed him to fly at night during clear conditions, as long as visibility wasn't an issue.
Mm-hmm.
On October 21st, 1978, Frederick Valentich took off on a routine scheduled flight to pick up some crayfish along a route that he'd flown many times before. He left Moorabbin Airport near Melbourne at 6:19 p.m. in a Cessna 182 light aircraft. He was meant to travel west on a 40 to 45 minute long flight along the Australian coast. When he arrived at Cape Otway, he was to head south over Bass Strait towards King Island. Though he'd flown this way many times, this time something unexplainable happened. At 7:06 p.m., while flying around Cape Otway, Frederick called Air Traffic Advisor Stephen Roby. Needless to say, the conversation was anything but ordinary. There is a full transcript of the radio transmission between Valentich and Roby, and we'll probably post that on Twitter.
It is eerie.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you can read it and listen to it if you want to. But I'm just going to paraphrase it for the sake of time. Valentich asked if there was any known traffic around him below 5,000 feet. Roby stated that there wasn't. Valentich then stated he was looking at a large aircraft below 5,000 feet, and that he couldn't identify it other than that it had 4 bright lights that looked to be landing lights. It was passing by at about 1,000 feet above him. He then asked if there were any Air Force craft in the vicinity. He was told that there were no known aircraft flying in the vicinity. The next words that Valentich said stick with me and make me believe what so many others believe. He said, "It's not an aircraft, it is, as it's flying past, it's a long shape. Cannot identify, it has such speed. It's before me right now, Melbourne. It seems like it's chasing me. What it's doing right now is orbiting. The thing is just orbiting on top of me. It's also got a green light and sort of metallic-like. It's all shiny on the outside." Seconds after that transmission, Valentich radios in again saying, "It's just vanished." Then again later, "That strange aircraft is hovering on top of me again. It is hovering and it is not an aircraft." For 17 seconds after his last message, a strange metallic scraping sound could be heard over the radio. Then suddenly the radio went dead. At 7:12 p.m., only 6 minutes after the initial transmission started, a search and rescue alert was given, and Frederick Valentich never arrived at King Island, where he was supposed to land. For a whole week after radio contact was lost, there was a sea and air search, but nothing was recovered. No crashed aircraft, no missing person, nothing. Despite the lack of physical evidence of a crash, his demise was presumed fatal, so search was called off. To this day, his body has never been found. Now let's get into the theories.
Theory number 1.
The biggest theory is an obvious one. He was abducted by aliens. As mentioned earlier in his radio call, he did mention a suspicious flying object that he couldn't identify that had been following him. That disappeared and reappeared. If this was the case, though, the aliens would have had to take the plane he was flying to, as it was designed to float if it crashed into water. And since the plane was never recovered, it is not unlikely that they abducted him and the craft. And if it's as big as he says it was, then it's not impossible that they took the craft too. On the day of, and even the 7 days that followed Valentich's disappearance, many people came forward saying that they saw a strange green light in the sky at the time of his disappearance. Some witnesses from just outside Apollo Bay in Victoria claimed to have seen his plane in the sky. It appeared to be diving, and he was being followed by this green light. Skeptics will be ready to jump in the comments and say that they had just read reports and watched the news. But these supposed sightings came out days after Valentich's disappearance, and the transcripts of the transmission weren't shared to the public until 4 years later in 1982.
Mm-hmm.
So no one could know exactly what he had said. Another theory is that Valentich wasn't abducted, but did in fact have a premonition about his fate. Friends and family of Valentich have said that he was very interested in aliens and UFOs. His father even said that as a child, Frederick would talk on and on about them, and that he had a strange fear of being attacked or abducted by aliens. So while he may not have been abducted, it's thought by some that his fear of being abducted caused him to freak out when he saw something unfamiliar to him in the sky, and perhaps he crashed somewhere and the wreckage was just never found. Years after Valentich went missing, his girlfriend at the time, Rhonda Rushton, stated that the day before he was set to depart, he mentioned he was really nervous about his flight over the water. She said that at the time she found it strange, but he'd had a clear gut feeling about the flight. Another theory is that he could have flown anywhere but where he stated he was going. This is a plausible theory because even after the 45 minutes of flying he would have done for his intended trip, the Cessna 182 is capable of holding at least 800 kilometers of fuel more in the tank, so he could have flown a lot further if he really wanted to. To add to this, Valentich's plane wasn't actually plotted on a radar during his flight, which isn't normal, and has caused people to doubt that he was actually flying his predetermined route. Even further evidence of this theory is that at the time of Valentich's disappearance, Melbourne police received a number of reports stating that a light aircraft had landed just outside of Cape Otway. Sound familiar? It should. Cape Otway is where Valentich was supposed to be flying, and it gets more interesting. Valentich had also told 2 different stories as to why he was flying. He told his friends and family he was picking up crayfish,
Mm-hmm.
but he told people at the airport that he was flying to King Island to pick up passengers. Now, the
Mm.
Cessna 182 is capable of fitting, I think, 14 passengers, not including the pilot. So it is plausible. During the investigation into what happened, however, it came to light that no passengers had been waiting to be picked up, nor had Valentich ordered any crayfish. Crayfish weren't even available from where he said he ordered them from at that time. Others have said it might even have been an elaborate suicide attempt.
Yeah, maybe.
Though there's no real evidence to show he had been planning this, it's still a possible theory. He hadn't made it into the Air Force like he'd hoped, and had failed his commercial pilot's license a couple of times. It's possible he thought suicide was his only option. His girlfriend said he had a gut feeling the day before. Perhaps this gut feeling was him second-guessing whether to go through with it or not. That's just my little take on that theory. A more far-fetched, yet also somehow plausible theory is that, due to his interest in aliens and fear of abduction, he was trying to recreate a scene from Steven Spielberg's movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which came out a year prior to his disappearance. It's thought by some that Valentich became disoriented and crashed while trying to recreate the opening scene. This theory is believed by some because the dialogue in the film bore a resemblance to some of what he had said during his radio conversation with Roby. The Bass Strait which he flew over is known for its particularly strong currents. It is therefore possible that he crashed into the ocean, and the strong waves carried him and the airplane far away. 5 years after his disappearance, an engine fail cap washed up on the shore of Flinders Island. It was taken to a Navy research center where it was determined that the engine fail cap would have come from a Cessna 182, and that the serial number of the plane Valentich was flying is one of the serial numbers it could have come from. I do have my own theory though, and
Let's hear it.
I don't have the proof to back it up, but after reading through some of the other theories, I believe it's entirely plausible because there's enough evidence in other theories that I could sort of piece together my own theory. I believe that he, aside from being abducted by aliens, that is a strong contender for me, obviously, for my love for aliens. I honestly think that he used the plane to run away and start a new life. Aviation wasn't working out for him, so maybe he flew somewhere else in Australia, changed his name, and started a new life and just lived. 800 kilometers isn't a lot. It's enough to cover half of Australia. And if you're going from Melbourne, you can easily fly inland and stash it somewhere, I think he could easily have gone there with, a fake name or something like that and just started a new life and just, maybe he decided, along with the suicide theory, maybe he decided on the fly, instead of attempting suicide, he was going to change his direction and go somewhere else.
You kind of hope it's that. It's better than
Yeah.
abducted, never seen again, or suicide.
I mean, because if you think about it, he was 20 when he left.
Yeah.
Or went missing, sorry. He was 20 when he went missing, and that was in 78. So he'd be early 60s. So he could very well be still alive, And I like to think that, he is out there somewhere else,
Just, obviously destroyed his partner's life.
Yeah. Or even if he did crash somewhere, it's plausible that he survived and he's, Robinson Crusoe or Tom Hanks.
Sure.
When he's just cast away somewhere with a football.
With a football.
His little Wilson.
Wasn't that a basketball?
It was a netball.
It was a netball?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, no. The basketball was in Madagascar. It was Alex the Lion's Spalding.
Spalding, yes.
Yeah, which was the reference to Castaway. But yeah, so that's my story. That is the disappearance of Frederick Valentich. However many years on, and we still don't know what happened to him.
Nor shall we ever.
I don't think we ever will, no. I believe you have a intriguing tale.
Intriguing. One of Australia's most infamous murder mysteries is the case of the Summerton Man, intriguing many with theories involving lovers and Cold War spies. Little is obviously known of this man, hence why he is known as the Summerton Man. But this is what we do know. The Summerton Man arrived by train to Adelaide Station on the morning of Thursday, the 30th of November 1948. It is theorized that he had come from Melbourne. He stored his luggage at the station around 11 a.m, and even though he purchased a train ticket to Henley Beach, the ticket wasn't used. Maybe as he found there was a bus to Glenelg would get him closer to his unknown destination, which is also 20 minutes from where his body would be found. After he arrived, he wouldn't be seen again till 9:15 p.m. by local businessman John Lyons and his wife as they strolled along the beach. Sun setting, they saw a man in an awkward position lying down at a rather popular location close to stairs to the esplanade. He raised his hand briefly as they walked off. Around 8 p.m, at dusk, a couple saw a man in a hat staring at the man on the beach before walking off. The couple sitting on the beachside bench couldn't quite see the man he stared at, just his feet as the stairs obscured their sight. They never saw him move, but thought he must have changed position as they looked away. They thought this was weird, though, as the mozzies had already come out. There the Summerton Man lay till 6 a.m. the following morning, when two jockeys discovered the body. Nearby was John Lyons, who was the one to call the cops.
So John Lyons was the first person to see him, right? One of the ones that he waved at?
Yeah, at least the first person who ever reported that they saw him. Him and his wife, though, kind of because of that strange position he was in, dismissed him a little as just some drunkard.
Do you think he was actually, dying and was like, help?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah. That's the ticket.
That's the ticket for me. Yeah, so he was the first to call the police. When police did arrive, they found no signs of violence.
Okay.
He had a cigarette tucked behind his ear and one partially smoked near his collarbone.
Like it had fallen out of his mouth and
kind of thing. That's what it looked like it would have happened. His used bus ticket and unused train ticket was found on him, as was 2 combs, juicy fruit gum, Army Club cigarette packet that contained a different sort of cigarettes in it, with Bryant and Mary matches.
So it's almost like, okay, first of all, I didn't know juicy fruit was around back then.
Yeah, it is, and it pretty much has the same packaging.
Oh, really? The horrible, yellowy orange.
I mean, I like the packaging, but yeah, just
right.
The yellow, yes.
Also second. So it's almost like, so he had a different brand of cigarettes in his pocket,
More
right?
expensive cigarettes were found within the cigarette packet.
Oh, okay. So they weren't.
right?
So they weren't right. Okay.
So
Because
something that
my
a lot of guys would do, and I actually think me growing up, people around me, like adults around me, used to do this. Is you'd want to look like you have the more expensive smokes, so you'd purchase once
Mm.
the more expensive cigarettes, but then just put cheaper ones in as you would smoke them throughout the day, which is silly because all cigarettes kind of look a little different, so it's easy to see. But well, not easy, but easy enough. This was the other way
Yeah.
around. Almost okay, so there's a few theories that I'll get into later, but
See, I was thinking that maybe the person that killed him
yep.
staged it to look like he'd fallen asleep smoking. Not that that's what killed him, but that he was just on the beach
Or
killing.
did it kill him?
Or did it kill him? It could have been a poison
We're
cigarette.
going too far ahead.
Sorry,
we're going too
sorry.
far ahead.
I've got all these thoughts racing in my head.
I know, but we go too far.
Yep.
What else was found? There was nothing to identify him, not even labels on his clothes. As they were removed, they were able to find out at a later date that some of them had come from American brands. A post-mortem was taken the following day. He was well-dressed, fresh haircut, 2, maybe 3 weeks, healthy body.
Expensive cigarettes.
Yeah. He interesting enough, so yeah, healthy body, but also with bulging calves, like really muscular calves.
Mm.
He was around 40, 45 years old. They confirmed that yes, he must have been a smoker by the yellowing on his hands.
Yep.
The only thing that indicated bad health, really, there was a spleen, which was 3 times its normal size. The death was labelled at the time natural with unknown cause.
I mean, a giant spleen.
Yeah, but there is a whole list of things that could increase the size of your spleen,
Yeah.
not necessarily something that would kill you. Yeah. Many people came in hoping to identify him, but no positive IDs have ever been made. Weeks later, the body would be embalmed, and then later a plaster mold was made at the hope that someone someday could identify this man. As the weeks went on, the police began to suspect unnatural causes. They had found that his digestive tract had a large amount of congealed blood, possibly indicating poison.
From the cigarette.
From maybe the cigarette or the juicy fruit. But when the test came back, no poison was found.
Ooh.
Sent off for tests, to find out if there was any poison in his body. But yeah, nothing was found. Nor was there any sign of vomiting on him or near the scene. But the police did now suspect suicide or murder. Police then followed a hunch that if he arrived via train, his luggage may remain as unclaimed baggage. They did find what they believed to be his luggage, right date, same size clothes. Nothing was unexpected that they found within the luggage, but they did find a name, Keene, spelt with and without an E on the end. Strangely, though, the luggage receipt was never found. Not on him, not in the luggage, just nowhere. His fingerprints were sent across Australia and overseas. Obviously, again, without success. It was around this time that the embalming they had done was weakening, and they took this plaster mold. On the 14th of July, 1949, he was buried. This was 6 months after his body was found.
They didn't bury him for 6 months?
On the hope that someone could ID him. It wasn't,
Yeah, I suppose.
they really tried their best.
How soon after they found the body did they plaster him, though?
Plaster, that was shortly before burial. It was
Right.
embalming a few weeks after they found him.
Yeah, to try and keep him preserved.
Yeah. A captain from the Salvation Army led the service, but it was rather under the radar to stop curious public. He has on his headstone, "Here lies the unknown man who was found at Summerton Beach on the 1st of December, 1948. Within his clothes was finally found a scrunched up piece of scrap paper with the words Taman Shud, meaning ended or finished, found on the last page of Rubaiyat of Umar Khayyam, And my apologies if I mispronounce that. What is particularly interesting about this book of poetry is that one of its main themes is of living without regret. And that might come into play a little later.
Cool.
A public appeal for anyone with a copy of this book with that page torn out was to come to police. A man, wishing to remain anonymous, brought in this very book on the 22nd of July, 1949. Now, as people who do follow true crime and everything, these public appeals can go on forever with little success. This was very quick success. He said he found it on the back seat of his car at the time of the Summerton Man's death. His windows were down, which isn't actually uncommon at this time, so a book could easily have been discarded. In this book, they found on the back page 4 lines of letters written with one crossed out, appearing to be a code, but a code that no one has been able to break.
That's curious.
Yes, very curious. Then, and it's something easily found online, many code breakers have tried to find, the code, but to no success. So much to no success is in this story. Below that was 2 numbers. One was the number of a local bank and the other of a local woman. Only a few days later, on the 26th of July, police made contact with the local woman whose number was found in this book. Her name was Jessica Thompson. Though this would only be found out a little while later, she was referred really in the public as Justin to hide her identity for a while, and it was, I guess, kind of a nickname she used. I would like to state here, so my family is already probably giggling. My name wasn't always Summer. It actually used to be Jessica Thompson. And I will to attest to the fact that whilst the name isn't, it's a pretty name, it's a highly common name.
So it wasn't her?
I think it was her.
No, I mean, it wasn't you.
No, it wasn't me. Do I look that old? No, it wasn't me. And what's also interesting actually about this book that I'd like to mention is it was relatively popular at the time, but this particular edition of the book wasn't. It was rather rare. I think it pretty much one of a kind, yeah. Anyway, sorry, back to Jessica. She denied knowing him. She did admit that that is her favorite book of poetry, and she did have a copy, but she gave it away. Actually, she gave it away to a member of the military in 1945. His name was Alf. She was able to view the plaster cast, and when she did, she said she didn't recognize the person at all, but she started to act quite odd. She would give only basic responses back to police after they were questioning her, and started to refuse to even look at the plaster cast, or look it down at the floor, at the ceiling, anywhere but at this person's face. She had 2 children, Robin and Kate. Jessica's husband was the father of Kate, her youngest, but wasn't the father of Robin. Actually, we don't know who Robin's father is.
Yeah, we do.
As far as Alf, he actually was found and still had his copy that she had given him of that book with a message that actually says, that is signed off with Justin, so that nickname, inside. They had met 1945 in Sydney while she was studying to become a nurse, and she lived it up with Alf for a few nights before he went back to his active service. She stopped her studyings and moved to Adelaide, seemingly had a child, settled down.
Was it Alf's child?
Was it Alf's? Was it Summerton's? What's interesting is, you may not know this, but our ears can actually be quite unique.
Yeah, they're like fingerprints as well, aren't they?
No, I don't think they're as
Yeah,
like
but no, but like there's
they're not as unique as a fingerprint, but they are still very
yeah,
unique. And there are some things that make that only a certain amount of the population have.
yeah.
This is true of Robin and the Summerton Man.
Mm.
And actually, fun fact, the plaster mold is actually still around. It's something that still can be viewed, which is absolutely incredible, I think. Later on, when Kate grew up, she would actually describe her mother as having rather a dark side. And she thought her mother was a Russian spy. Dun dun dun, right? Her mother would speak Russian and then deny being able to.
Hmm.
Kate said that her mother once said the Summerton Man was known to those higher up. So around the time of his death was the Cold War. And there was also a testing facility not that far from where she lived. There was also, a few years before the Summerton Man's death, a similar case with a suspected suicide by poison. Had the same book, and there was rather a few sketchy details about that death, including someone who wanted to present evidence but would be found 13 days later with slit wrists.
Hmm.
So that is the story of the Summerton Man. One thing that came out of one of the inquests was that, yes, there was no poison to be found, but there are two poisons that can not be traced with these tests and are relatively easily available.
What are they? Do you know what they are? Or
Well, at the time, they actually didn't tell anyone
right,
because of it being easy to access.
right, yeah.
I didn't want to give people hints. Yes, I could mention them, but I'm not gonna. Now, obviously, there is so many people looking into this case and trying to figure out what happened. As I kind of briefly mentioned, was there poison in his cigarettes? Was there poison in the juicy fruits? When they looked at what he had eaten that day, if you want to say it that nice way, a pasty is all. But again, something that easily could have been poisoned.
When you say pasty, do you mean the pasties, like the
Pasty.
like
Yeah.
the pastries with like the
Yep.
sort of like spiral thing? Okay, because yeah, you could just inject something into the pastry and then like the crust of it, and just it would have gone straight into the meat or the potato or whatever it was that was inside them.
But how he was murdered is really only one part of the mystery. Why was he? As I said, was a well put together guy. As much as he wasn't looking for labels, or there was nothing to show.
Yeah.
He was looking for labels. He was well kept, in good physical condition. Could he have been an agent, a spy? Maybe even tracking down Jessica, or whatever her name was, because I feel like that's a bit like Jane Smith, Jessica Thompson.
I think it's like Jessica.
Exactly. Could it have been something like that? That she maybe defected? That she was
a sleeper agent?
Sleeper agent?
Yeah. That's what I think it was. I think she was a sleeper agent. Maybe fell for him, but like he would have known who she was, like tracking down a lead. Maybe they fell for each other or whatever, and then she got activated and killed him, and then deactivated, I guess. And so that, because the way, like, I don't know if it, because I've never looked into sleeper agents, but like the way it's portrayed in movies is like you can activate them and deactivate them and pretty much just
Sure.
So,
but then how does that explain why he would have wanted to go and see her?
Well, they could have. See, he may have been the one to defect. Or maybe he was traveling to find her and neutralize her, and then realized that she wasn't any harm in her current state. Someone else, maybe this elf guy, found out and was actually a sleeper as well. I don't know. There's lots of speculation. You never know. So many different theories. Always so many different theories.
Always.
Always.
And yeah, so one of the things with the cigarettes is, was it in a less expensive packet, even though they were more expensive cigarettes? Because, yeah, did
Mm.
someone plant them there? Or was he wanting to keep out of the limelight? Like he wanted to just blend into the crowd a bit.
Mm. Or maybe the cigarettes, like the packet was a you know when you're supposed to like meet someone in a public place and they
Mhm.
have the the
Oh, yeah, like like when you're going on a date and you
the
bring the
mark.
rose.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
mark that makes you stand out,
Yeah, yeah.
you know? And so he obviously has a taste for the
Mm,
cigarette that he smokes, but so that he still stands out, so that he's, marked by the so that the guy can find him,
yeah.
he just puts them in that box so he can still smoke the ones that he's got a taste for
Mhm.
because they do taste different. Maybe that's all it is.
And I do wonder about the other phone number being a bank,
Mm.
a local bank.
All right. Is there anything that says that Jessica Thompson has an account there or had an account there?
You know what? I don't know. She was very secretive
Right.
whenever. So since pretty much whenever this would gain, like this story would gain any kind of steam
Mm.
again, people would be looking into it. She would disappear or just not answer.
Yeah.
Anyone. Yeah, she's been very hidden
Mm.
from this story. She does not want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think she'd be answering questions like that.
For all we know, he could have had that book on his person, the entire trip down on the train and then on the bus. It was a bus that he took.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
chose the bus. Yeah.
Um, and that entire trip down, um, he could have cut out the end himself or
Mm.
ripped it out, however it was done. And on his way to the beach, chucked the book.
But then why would it be found inside his pants, not just in the pockets or anything?
Yeah, I don't know.
That seems kind of premeditated.
Mm.
And to me, the reason, why a lot of people say that he was going to see her is to see his child.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. Maybe the reason there's a bank number was so that he could call and make sure that the bank was still in operation because
He wants to
there's a
send.
safe deposit box that
Hmm.
he uses to contact her.
Yeah,
And
totally.
yeah, because I
And
mean,
one thing that I wonder, so she didn't open up, don't know who really the husband is,
yeah,
but wouldn't you get kind of jealous? And if
yeah,
you knew anything about
exactly, yeah.
your wife and maybe what she was really like,
Mm.
were you maybe not happy that you finally found out who Robin's father is?
Or maybe he was the sleeper agent.
Yeah,
There's so many different theories.
so many. Yeah, and there's so many different angles to take.
Mm.
Like I said, it was assumed that he came from Melbourne, but because the reason being, before 11 o'clock, there really wasn't that many, trains arriving.
Yeah,
Yeah, Melbourne was the only bigger city one, the rest were smaller. And he did come across as so well presented that he would have stuck out like a sore thumb
yeah,
at these smaller places. They would have been able to identify them when he was checking.
Mm.
If he came from Melbourne, though,
yeah,
no, it wouldn't have been that unusual for no one to really be able to ID him.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I really feel for him if he was alive when the couple were having their sunset stroll.
Yeah,
Saw that he was just like kind of a drunkard, really didn't really think much of it, but that he was at that point trying to single
yeah.
out to them, oh, I'm actually still alive, please help me.
It might have even been that like he wasn't waving them down. He could have literally just been reaching out, like his last
Yeah.
breath, just like.
Yeah, I
And then
think in one of them, in a few of the different articles I was reading, it was like he flopped his hand back down, like he really
Yeah.
didn't again, which led them to think, oh, he's drunk, as
Yeah.
opposed to maybe I'm being poisoned.
Yeah.
The other couple said that, the other couple later that were on the chairs looking down and could only see his feet. They said that he moved, but I wonder if he truly did. I would be racked with guilt if I later found out that someone's feet that I had seen was actually dead, and maybe I could have, or so close to dying, you
Mm.
know, and I could have done something about it that in my
Yeah.
mind I would have changed what happened.
How soon does rigor mortis set in?
No, when it shouldn't have been that quick. Why?
I was just thinking maybe what they saw move was
Death fits.
yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. But yeah,
And I suppose depending on how loud the waves were, they might not have heard him like gasping
gasping. Yeah.
over the waves, and seeing him move
Hmm.
would have just been a drunk guy sort of starfishing on the ground, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Something that would also be reported a while later is someone carrying another man on the beach that
Right.
night. It's not necessarily confirmed that it had anything to do with Summerton Man, but again, that assumption of drunkenness and maybe that was someone putting him there. So the position that he was in, so there's the seawall, the beach, and his head is just against the seawall, but the rest of him is laying out relatively flat.
Yeah.
That's not a normal position. That's
No,
not
it's
a
not.
position you would put yourself in, even, I mean, in a drunk.
That's not a position a friend would have put a dying friend in either. Like,
No.
if you think about like all like the war movies and stuff, they have them propped up at least like halfway down their back, so they've got some sort of like shades look.
Yeah. Unless, of course, he slid down and he just didn't have the energy to lift his arm. But yeah, this case is absolutely fantastic. So many different twists and turns. And, you know, like, look at that code. So many people trying to find out what the code at the end of that book was. The fact that they even found that book is pretty amazing. But it also makes me think, if you wanted to destroy the code, why would you put it in the back of someone's car? Wouldn't you put it in a bin at least? Chuck it out to sea?
Yeah.
I almost feel like they wanted it to be found, but then in which case, why? Did they, you know, again, was it someone else, not Jessica, but that maybe wanted to frame Jessica?
Yeah. Maybe it's just a sequence of numbers that means nothing.
Do you often write sequence of numbers down for no reason?
No, but maybe it's to throw them off the trail of the case.
But then why put the bank number and Jessica's number down?
Maybe the bank has nothing to do with it. Maybe they were trying to frame Jessica and put the code in to.
You just said they were trying to frame her.
Yeah, no, I know, but maybe the code means nothing, and the bank also means nothing, and they were just, you know.
Maybe.
I don't know. It's obviously the stories we picked today were supposed to be Australian mysteries, and that they are. But it's weird that they both happened on a coast.
Yes.
Both originated from Melbourne.
Possibly.
Possibly, yep. And both theories link to the possibility of suicide, maybe.
I truly don't believe that for mine.
Oh, I don't believe it for mine either. But
it's there.
It's
there.
there.
There's there.
You know? Yeah. But they also have an air of conspiracy, which is what we're all about, which is great. Not great for the people involved, but great for us because it's something that we love talking about.
I think this is definitely one of those ones where I could talk forever about it.
Yeah.
And because everything's it's so not linear with this story, I do find it hard to
piece it together.
Like
chronologically and stuff.
Yeah, when this piece of evidence came about, when this did, I could speak about what's happening currently. Like, there's just so many different things, and yet nothing. Like, we don't know anything about this guy.
See, my problem was like, you know, you have like a little bit of background of him, and then it happens over 45 minutes. He just disappears, and then a week of searching, and then nothing for 4 years until his girlfriend speaks up, and then nothing for another couple of years until that cat washes ashore, which you know isn't much of a lead. It could be off.
It could be or could not be.
Like, I mean, I don't know how many Cessna 182s crash, Like I said, they're built to land on the water if they go down. So, um, yeah, who knows? But it's actually one interesting, completely unrelated theory, but the number 182 is in it, so that's why. So
Yes. Oh my
yeah,
God. Mention this.
yeah, right.
Yes.
So I have a theory, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Blink-182 has been less than vocal about where the 182 came from. I know they've been around for more than 20 years. Like, obviously, originally they were called Blink, but then there was this lawsuit threat from an Irish band somewhere,
And they said they just put the
and they
numbers
said that
on.
they just chucked the 182 on the end. But I was thinking, and I'm only not sure of this because I don't know who it was that came up with 182, whether the three of them just picked a number each, or which, entirely plausible, or they
Mine would have
just
been 8.
because there's the one theory that 182 is half of a year, so like
That's such a boring theory, though.
it's such a boring theory.
Yours is
My
far
theory
better.
is great. So Tom DeLonge, one of the founding members of Blink-182, as a lot of you know, is interested in UFOs and aliens, and he has funded To the Stars Media and To the Stars Academy and all sorts of other.
So massive believer.
Yeah, huge believer. All sorts of other projects to do with space exploration, and he's been at talks with members of NASA, members of the American not Parliament. What are they? Just people in charge of conspiracies and stuff. And he's part of the, he was actually the footage that got leaked. Well, not leaked. Declassified at the start of the year about the UFOs. He was onto that, but way before that happened, and we're like years before that actually happened. Like, he had knowledge of that footage. He was a firm believer that footage existed and everything. So my theory is that he suggested 182 because he may know full well about the Valentich, the Frederick Valentich story, and because of the plane that disappeared being a Cessna 182, he thought, you know what, UFOs, I want it to be part of my band. Here's 182. Yeah. So that was my long-winded theory.
Yeah, and this is definitely one, if you want to talk to us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, email us campfireconspiraciespodcast@gmail.com about your own theories and want to talk to us more about these.
Yep.
Oh my God, we're so for this.
Tell us we're wrong. Tell us we're right. Tell us why we're wrong. Tell us why we're right. Just chat. The stuff, like, this is what we're all about, and these topics particularly are just insanely rich with subject matter.
Are.
So
and so many conspiracies,
so many theories as to what happened on both topics, and yeah, we just want to know you guys' thoughts. So don't forget to vote. Don't forget to just let us know what you think.
But in the meantime, keep those campfires burning.